Good evening, Madam President. It is 6 p.m. I've started the recording.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mrs. Green.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please let's stand for a moment of silence. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton, Ms. Green,
Here.
Dr. Henderson,
Here.
Mr. Howard,
Here.
Mr. Levenstein,
Here.
Ms. Maida,
Here.
Ms. Mineo,
Here.
Mr. Strittmeyer, Mr. Walker.
Here.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose. Matter made confidential under FERPA, employment history of particular individuals, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Sophie.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes,
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
we will return in approximately an hour. Mr. Howard, I apologize for missing you, but you put your hand down. So I thought you weren't interested in speaking again.
No. Actually, Ed answered my question. 'Cause my question was going to be, what does Ed recommend?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, Madam President. I've started the recording back up.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry we're a little late. We're now at the section of the agenda for public discussion and comments on agenda items. Mr. McCoy, do we have anybody that signed up for speak on agenda items?
You have nobody signed up to speak tonight, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move on to our interim superintendent, Mr. Forget.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, I have item 3.1, a resolution to approve the 2022-2023 district calendar.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Strittmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President. So based on this calendar, the February break is not included for next year. Is there a way that this calendar can be reworked so that the Newburgh School District can be on the same page as the neighboring school districts to make it easier for people that work in the district? Because their kids will have off in other school districts and childcare is going to be an issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stridarn. And we honestly do try to make things work and take every consideration possible to be aligned with the Orange Ulster BOCES calendar. However, we have individual expectations we have within the district that we have to address. For example, we have a 189-day calendar. Within that 189 days, we have to build in 5 emergency days. So it's truly a 184 plus 5 emergency days. So we have to have kids in seats 189 days out of the year. We are allowed to have 4 conference days, but they're all incorporated in that. I'm not sure what the other school districts have for their total days of instruction or what's built into their contracts, but I would venture to say that that has something to do with it. The other thing is based on our district and our community, we do take 2 days off for holiday in September. And we also have another holiday in April. And I don't believe the April holiday is consistent across all counties, all districts within the county. So the uniqueness to the calendar is created based on the community by which we serve, in addition to the contract for 189 days. I did try a variety of different ways to figure this out. It's not doable, Mr. Stridarn, based on those expectations. I did try.
Mr. Levinstein?
Thank you, Madam President. So yeah, I understand what Mr. Stridarn is saying, but to Mr. Forget's point that this calendar was devised just by Orange Ulster BOCES, and most or all of the districts follow it. But in addition, there are other things, like we are supplying days off for the Christian holidays, the Jewish holidays, the Muslim religious holiday, state and federal holidays. So all of these are taken into account in this calendar. And I'm assuming that that particular week wouldn't allow these holidays to be taken. Thank you.
Mr. Stridarn?
Thank you, Madam President. So as far as emergency days are concerned, is it possible for like snow days? Can we eliminate snow days and just have days that are inclement weather, just go full virtual for everybody rather than the traditional snow days? Is that possible?
Mr. Forget?
Determine negotiations that we would have to enter into with each of the units. And it's something we could consider.
Thank you.
Ms. Green?
I was just wanted to ask Mr. Forget, because in the past, are you saying that there are additional holidays in this calendar that weren't given in the prior years, which is why we now have this issue? Because I'm just trying to figure out how it was worked out previously. They had a week off. So you're saying now in this particular upcoming school calendar that there are extra days that they are giving in terms of holidays? I was just a little confused about that. Thank you, Madam President.
So I can speak to last year's calendar. There was one additional holiday added at the end of August or beginning of September after the calendar was created. And there was also an agreement with one of the bargaining units to reduce the number of emergency days, which allowed for that to happen. We did not do that this year. We're following what the contract says.
Thank you, Mr. Forget.
Mr. Stridarn?
So if we find other school districts have the February week off, but still provide the same holidays as we do, but maybe they just go a little longer in the school year at the end of the year, or maybe they start a day or two earlier, is that something that we would consider changing? Because this calendar doesn't start until September, so we have some time. Is that something that we would consider changing, or what does this calendar have to be approved tonight for?
Mr. Forget?
Yep, this calendar normally is approved to allow individuals to plan for the next year. We try to get it done in the month of February. If at any point in time after it's adopted, someone has a better way of doing it, I am not proud. I will take that way and address it to make everyone happy. It's about doing the right thing for the kids in the community. So this was our best attempt with following the rules and expectations we had. If there's another way to do it, I'm more than open to it, and we could bring it back for an amendment.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So in answer to that question, Mr. Forget, will someone from Central be looking at the BOCES calendar, looking at the districts surrounding us to find that information out? And if something is found out, we will bring that back for a revote or reconsideration?
Mr. Howard, I started that way. I started with the Orange Ulster BOCES calendar. I watched how it was done. They had 2 versions of a calendar. It did not work for us. But if there's a published calendar out there that another district did, that created, I will have my support staff work with me to do a search across the county and try to find one. If you find one, I'd be happy to receive it and consider it.
No, I don't get paid enough. You guys can look for that.
Thank you. I see no more hands, Mr. Forget. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stritter,
No.
Mr. Walker,
Abstain.
Ms. Burton.
Yes.
Item passes.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, we want to just have a quick conversation to begin the introduction of the budget process. I think it's really important for everyone to see how the district has been moving using the federal stimulus money, talking about the purpose of that money, to discuss the budget assumptions, the thought process behind the way we're creating our general fund budget. So this evening, we're going to go through a pretty quick kind of summary of the direction we're taking. So next slide, please. The next slide talks about the funds, and those are the Coronavirus and Relief Supplementary Act. We received these funds, and these funds must be expended by September 2023. Next slide, please. These funds can incorporate a variety of different things, and this is something that was already presented to the public in September by Dr. Spindler. The funds have to address learning loss, preparing schools for reopening, air quality and ventilation, summer school extended day, and preserving educational jobs. Let's go. So what did we do with this money? Here's a summary of what we did with this money. Again, $4.4 million went into these particular things. And again, this was presented in September. This is a repeat. And again, this sunsets in September 2023. Really important for us to remember. Extended school year programs. So how are we running our summer programs, and what unique things can we do to begin to address what our students need as a result of the pandemic? Next slide. Ventilation, getting the unit ventilators up and changed out, our air handlers, ductwork, exhaust fans, the windows that we've been replacing, and the MERV 13 working in tandem with our capital project. And then at the end, one of the final things was continuing to purchase masks. The big thing right now is getting in the KN95s, a lot of requests for those. So we're trying to accommodate those requests and to continue to give opportunities for outdoor dining and opportunities for kids to get outside in the fresh air as we continue to battle this pandemic. So that's one lump chunk of funding that you were, again, shared with. This was all shared with you back in September. This is more clarity on what's going on with the American Rescue Plan. So the American Rescue Plan takes us through September of 2024. Now, the piece that we have to remember when we're talking about this stimulus funding is that money goes away. But the money is intended to really address preparing the infrastructure of the school, as well as providing the specific instructional, academic, and behavioral needs that our students are now presented with as a result of this pandemic. But we've got to be careful that we're balancing this to make sure that there's some way of sustaining individual components of this after 2024. The tough part is the best way to support a student is to put a teacher in the classroom. But knowing that the money goes away in 2024, where's the balance? Because where are we going to get the funding for those individual teachers, and how do we rethink it? So we're taking that really seriously. Could you go back one? So this September 2024 funding, we're looking to get specific support for our English language learners. As you know, we're seeing a large number of new entrants into the district. We're looking to really support the academic and behavioral needs of the students at the elementary level. So our secondary levels have restorative practices that they're incorporating into their SAVE and their SAC rooms. And when students are removed from a classroom, they're not only getting their academic support, they're getting behavioral support. So the replacement behaviors get it in place, and the student doesn't end up in a similar situation again. We're looking to do that and expand that at the elementary level. You have to remember, some of these students, this is their first time in school and in the first grade. So they missed a whole kindergarten. Some of them missed kindergarten and first grade. So acclimating them to the structures of an educational environment is a struggle for some. And we're looking to really provide additional supports to address those needs. Instructional coaches, because we have to really, really ramp up new ways of addressing the needs, the academic needs of the students within the classroom. So how do you do that? We get an instructional coach that understands the different types of reading program, the reading program we're implementing, ARC, and some of the math components that we're doing as well. And then that bag of tricks that every teacher has. So pulling out the toolkit to get into that classroom to teach us a teacher that may not have those tools or have different tools and expose them to that. Instructional coaching is a research-based model that really will improve outcomes for kids. So we're looking to do that at the elementary, middle, and the high school level. We're also looking to really drive AIS. So academic intervention services, we all know, students who are struggling academically, behaviorally, and socially need additional support. So the system by which we drive that is through academic intervention services. So we're looking for someone to really take a look at the entire program at the elementary level and support each of the building AIS teachers to do it at a new level. Math in the district, it's very concerning to see that we really don't have the dedication in the math AIS department. So we're looking to ramp up the number of AIS teachers at the elementary and middle level to support those students that are struggling in math. The teachers teach the core. They work their hearts out to teach the core. If students are still struggling with the core, they try to do a little bit more within their classroom. But then there are a group of students that are still struggling. These AIS teachers will take the highest need students and support them, as well as co-teaching in the classroom to address the kids that are in the middle. Next slide, please. So what about special education? So for a period of time, we had students that were 100% virtual. The possibility of the need for referral to special education is very concerning, as well as those students that are struggling, but may not need special ed, but we need to do some type of screening or diagnostic to see how well they're doing. We're looking to put together a diagnostic team that will take the pressure off our existing staff that are already working with students that are enrolled in their schools that are classified students. So doing their annual reviews and their reevaluations, that's our regular staff. How do we deal with all the new referrals that are coming in while we're paying attention to the students that we already have? That's the purpose of this diagnostic team. We are increasing nurses by 3 so that we can maintain and sustain and create healthy environments. Our FACE department is beginning to work and partner with some of the health organizations, and they are looking to be preventative and get out there with, supporting vaccinations for those that are supportive of that. They're looking to do flu shots and explain the importance of flu shots and all of the regular wellness checks that we should be doing. We're looking to shift and really move in that direction. Additional support staff for our new school that is opening up across from Sacred Heart Church, the Sacred Heart School. We're looking to rename that, which is why I'm not going to say the name, because they're still working on that. But this is a great opportunity for students who are really impacted by the pandemic, that are struggling at our high school, to get in and get some really targeted instruction in a research-based model, working with a company that is really, really well suited for our student demographic. Security monitors, again, additional safety for our high school. The addition of the additional deputy, so that they're stationed at NFA North. Again, trying to make sure that everyone is in a safe and supportive learning environment. Additional technology. The other piece that we're looking for is, how do we sustain these funds? Well, maybe we have to have a grants management individual, somebody that's not only monitoring the implementation of these federal funds to make sure that we're doing with fidelity. The reason we got the funds is the reason we're using the funds, and it's having an impact on our student population. This was what that grants manager would do. But then they would also start to look for other revenue sources to be able to sustain some of the things that are working as we begin to move. So it's not just sitting back and saying somebody's going to hand us a chunk of money. It's saying, how do we go out there and figure out who's got money that can support what we need in Newburgh? And that's what these individuals would do together. Additional cleaners and a new parent coordinator. We currently have 2 FACE coordinators that are working really hard. We are looking to increase that to by another one and really begin to capitalize on the collaboration between home and school. So extended day and extended year. So the general fund is really not going to be impacted by our summer school program or our extended day programs. These stimulus funds are geared towards that. We're also looking to build partnerships with our municipalities so that we're not in competition with the provision of our programs. We're doing it in alignment with them. So we have a meeting set up this week to meet with each of the municipalities, the town of Newburgh, town of New Windsor, and city of Newburgh, to figure out what they're doing with their recreation departments this summer, so that we can leverage our resources with them to best serve our students. So we look forward to sharing that with you. When you look at everything I just shared and all the programs that we're moving, that's all your federal stimulus money. So as a result of that, as we go to the next slide, we have our budget assumptions. So knowing that we have the stimulus money to address the pandemic issues and to really begin to support our highest need students, these are our budget assumptions. So we're planning to utilize those stimulus funds and go out with a 0% tax increase. We do not foresee any increase to our taxpayers this year. We are going to maintain our core programs. We are going to give our teachers the opportunity to do what they do best, to teach the core program and do it really well. We don't plan to add a lot of new things onto their plate. These students need them, they need their attention, and we need to protect our teachers to do that. We're going out with a 0 tax increase. Establishing an education, oh, you got to go back, I'm not that quick. Establishing an educational environment that is stable regarding consistent in-person learning. We hope, and we are really, really all kind of coming together, that we are back to 100% in person for the entire year next year, and we begin to develop the new normal. So with that understanding, how do we use the general funds to support the program that we're teaching in the classrooms? The next one, focus on core curriculum and essential standards. It's let the teachers teach the standards. Let the teachers teach what is expected of them in those classrooms. That's what some of your general fund dollars will continue to support. We understand the pandemic has impacted every student in very different ways, and we have to be aware of that. So we're going to revise and revamp the AAS system. We're going to continue the multi-tiered system of support. Not every student needs the same thing. Just because a student is not performing on the math assessment, does that mean that student needs math support? That student may need support getting to class for attendance. That student may need organizational or management skills. But we need the resources and the focus to figure out what it is that's preventing these students from being successful. Completing a refresh of differentiated instruction. Those of us that are educators know differentiated instruction has been around forever. But our students are coming with very, very different needs. The differentiation of instruction has to be looked at in a very different way, with the non-traditional approach to small group instruction and instructional strategies. And then making sure that we have a balance between SEL and academics. Taxpayer dollars that are coming into the district will support these particular components. And then continuing to work, Dr. Roman has done an amazing job working with the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework for the state. It is working really well. He's got Dr. Hunter coming in and Dr. Holly coming in, and we're working with our faculty and our staff to continue to make sure that the instruction we're providing meets the needs of the students, and that we're tapping into their personal experiences and the culture by which they live in, and using that to inform the design of our lesson plans and our instruction. Supporting school leaders design and extended day and extended year programs. So we're using the federal funds to do this part. And tomorrow we're going to begin conversations with some of our administrators to see, can we create school-based extended day programs and school-based extended year programs. So if your child goes to Temple Hill or to Meadow Hill or to New Windsor, perhaps we can start to offer those summer programs in those schools. We're considering this because these students are just getting acclimated to the school that they're attending now. If we run a summer program and send them to another school and then bring them back in September to their regular school, are we really supporting those students to get comfortable with the environment that they're in? So we're trying to rethink the way we offer those programs and possibly increase enrollment. We're also looking at assessment. So assessment shouldn't just be a grade. A test and a quiz shouldn't be a grade. It should be a way that we can reflect and understand what it is the students need and how do we provide the supports for them based on that information. So general funds, we're really looking at assessments, the way we use assessments, the way we create assessments, and the way we improve outcomes for students in that way. Analyzing our software and hardware to determine what should remain. So we've used stimulus money to figure out what should stay, what should go. And Mr. Place and Ms. Peterson will be looking very closely at all of the different software that we brought in, what made a difference, what made impact, what didn't, why didn't it, and if we can improve it, let's improve it. If it didn't work, it's not gonna work, get rid of it. Let's not continue to do the vicious cycle of running around in a circle. Our kids need us to be focused and targeted and making the right decisions. So an analysis of the software and the hardware in the district, learn from the pandemic and move forward. Professional development for our faculty and our staff. Mr. McLemore and Ms. Van are working very hard with representatives from CSEA. So CSEA will be getting professional development, professional learning, and they will grow and develop the capacity to do things that they need to do better and to develop the capacity of things that they want to learn to do better. So we're going to spend some time and energy making sure that we're taking care of our CSEA representatives, as well as the NTA, NASA, and don't forget our senior staff. So as we go through this, the money we get from taxpayers is to build the capacity of our staff to do what's right for our kids. The last thing, continuing to provide attention to safe and healthy facilities, making sure that we've got those MERV 13 filters in place, making sure that we're not just complying with what we have right now, but what's the future for health and safety, and let's be proactive rather than reactive, and making sure that sanitization and cleaning continues at the level that it is right now. So this is the way we are going to begin to develop our budget based on the numbers that we received. And over the course of the next few meetings, you're going to get much more information as far as where we stand with the budget. We're not prepared to give you any of that information as of tonight.
Thank you. Board members' questions? Mr. Stridiron, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. So as far as the instructional coaches are concerned, do we have feedback from the staff at the buildings that the instructional coach position is an effective use of funds? Or could there be another way that staff could be used or new staff could be hired that would be more effective at helping our students?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate that. So when we think about instructional coaches, we do have two dedicated instructional coaches that I would speak of. One is in Valesgate and one is in Meadow Hill. And I believe if you ask the faculty in each of those schools, you would get the answer yes, that those instructional coaches are dedicated. As I said to you earlier, one of the things we want to be very careful of is not to be cautious as to the way we're spending the federal stimulus money. Having an instructional coach is not a classroom teacher. It's not placed into a classroom with 15 to 20 students. They are provided with specific training and professional development so that they can go in and share that talent with a variety of different teachers. So rather than just tapping into the 10, 15, 20, 25 students that they're assigned, or 150 that they're assigned secondary, even more in some circumstances, an instructional coach allows you to tap that teacher and maybe two teachers and expand the opportunities for many, many students. So it's a philosophical thing, I guess. Some individuals will say instructional coaches are amazing and the right way to go, and some may not. But based on what we have, it's the recommendation of our senior staff that we move in this particular direction.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. A good question and a good answer. So I guess I'm going to use that as a segue for my question. So, Mr. Forget, I was curious, how were the decisions made to arrive at these needs with the spending of the CRRSA money and the ARP money?
So last year, district leadership worked with an outside organization, Education Elements, to facilitate a conversation with multiple stakeholders. They collected all of that information. They put it together into a package, and that's how that was turned over to me. So that was all done last year, I guess throughout the spring into the beginning of summer, and we reacted to what they provided us.
So did that include building leaders, workers in the district?
I would have to go back and look, but I would venture to say yes.
Okay.
I would have to go back and look at that, Mr.
Thank you.
Mrs. Burton.
Thank you, Madam President. A little bit more, I'm curious more about instructional coaches. And so you're adding on, how do you work with them to identify who needs a coach? So that's one question. And then the second question, is there, are they also trained around the cultural responsive sustaining education so that they're also coaching in regards to the new curriculum maps that, you know, so that all kids are reflective in the curriculum? Are they trained, or what could that look like? Is there is there an intersection of those two, so to speak?
Yeah, so there are a variety of different types of coaches. You have a curriculum coach that will work with individual teachers to take a look at the curriculum, identify the curriculum, look at the standards that are being taught, then kind of take a look at what the student samples, student data is telling you about the classroom, and guide a teacher to work to create lesson plans that could be developed within the classroom based on the unique student needs. Master teachers can benefit from that, as well as brand new novice teachers. You know, it's engaging in collegial professional conversations about the way people approach their work. And yet I can always learn something. I learn every day. I learn from all different conversations. That's the power of a coach. When you think about a coach that goes in specifically to support a teacher that might be struggling with a particular unit, that's a totally different level of a coach, right? That's a coach that has to go in with a master plan to see how they can support that particular teacher. You know, again, coaches have to have specific training. We will probably be researching a few different methods and programs that are out there to provide for teachers so that they have the skills and they have the capacity to go out and do this particular work. But again, if you look at any of the research from Learning Forward, which is the premier professional development organization across the state, you will see instructional coaching is one of the one of the models of improvement in any classroom.
Mr. Levinstein.
Thank you, Madam President. So, looking at the federal stimulus funding for teachers and for additional personnel, my question revolves around, did we fill all these wish list positions, or are we in the process? What is the outlook to have people in all these positions that we have the financing for? Do we have the people for?
Yeah, that's a really great question. How do you balance the personnel? We're struggling to get personnel now. We're hoping that the ARP fund, the American Rescue Plan funding, most of those positions have not been filled yet. We're hoping to get out the recruitment for that, and those individuals would start in July. So if we can get out and do some heavy duty recruiting with new teachers that are coming out of their program to fill vacancies within the district. And again, you probably don't want a brand new teacher coming in to be an instructional coach, but we have some really master teachers that would be phenomenal instructional coaches that would be backfilled by a brand new teacher and then receive the support of the coach at the same time. So it's a pretty complicated cycle to figure out how to manage this whole thing. This is our plan. This is our goal. This is what's right for kids. If it doesn't work out, we have the opportunity to amend this and go in a different direction, but it's continuing to collect the data to see whether you're getting where you're going. Staffing is a definite concern for all of us.
Thank you.
Mrs. Maida?
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a comment, Mr. Forget, and this is for your senior staff too. This presentation is so well thought out. I just see all the pieces that are so important for our students and our teachers. So I just want to say thank you very much for all this hard work.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Maida. This is a result of not just senior staff. This is listening to what's happening, observing what's going on in the schools. Our team is out there looking in the schools. We have ears that are wide open. We listen to our board members as well. This is a community approach. This is not Ed Forget's plan. This is our plan.
Well,
this is what we're going to do. But I appreciate your.
And I know that it takes a village, as we know, but it
Yep.
truly was. I just see this as so forward thinking, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mrs. Maida.
Thank you.
Good, Mr.
I'd
Mayor?
Mr. Walker, I'll get to you in a second. I'd like to make a comment and piggyback on what Mrs. Maida said. You said something that's really touched me just now. And you said, this is what's right for kids. And I'm so glad to hear that finally, because I think this is what's right for kids and what's right for our staff. And we're beginning to focus on what to me is most important, and that's curriculum and instruction, as well as safety. But I think curriculum and instruction are right up there for me. So thank you, and thank your staff, and thank you, community. Mr. Walker?
Yes, I agree with what you just said, Carol, but I'm wondering, because I'm trying to put all the pieces together as well. There's a lot going on in the district. But what I'm wondering is, has there ever been, or is it possible to have a type of, let's say, independent, an outside agency that we could hire who could do a kind of educational health diagnosis on our district solely by ourselves?
Absolutely. And I think we've done that a couple of different times, but it might be time for us to really think about that. We've done audits of our curriculum. Just recently, we've done that, where they not only just looked at the written curriculum, they assessed the taught curriculum, they went into classrooms, they reviewed all of those different things. We've also done integrated co-teaching analysis, where what does co-teaching really mean and what does inclusion mean? But you know what, Mr. Walker, it's a really great idea. And I think that that's something that we need to go back and put back into this plan. I really appreciate you bringing that up. Definitely something we need to to move forward with. Thank you.
Mr. Stridiron?
So I know a couple years back, the TAs were removed from the elementary level, not all levels, but I believe kindergarten still has them. Is it possible that with some of this federal money that TAs can be reintroduced into first and second grade?
We can definitely take a look at that. Thanks for that consideration. Thank you.
Ms. Burton?
So thank you, Ms. Stridiron. I was thinking the same thing. Another thing I was thinking of is the question around, have we hired, teachers or staff yet? And so we know there is a shortage, particularly when it comes to diversity. Is there any way, and I know this has come up before in terms of grow our own type of teacher training program, so that we can maybe have more control over hiring people of color, particularly if they're coming, right through our own school district. I would be interested in exploring that, seeing you all explore that a little bit more, because we do know the numbers, and we are not a diverse teaching staff as it reflects our student body, and that is a goal of our diversity committee. So how, and I'm not asking to answer the question now, but how can we use some funds to help out in that area?
Thank you, Ms. Burton. And I believe Ms. Van and Mr. McLemore are looking at programs for teachers, assistants, and aides to move either to teaching assistant or a teaching assistant to a teacher as part of the leadership pipeline. So we'd be happy to give you some information on that in the very near future.
Thank you. Mr. Forget, I see no more hands.
I thank you for your time this evening, and we will be presenting more about the general fund budget in the next few meetings. That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Forget. We're now going to go on to the board committees. The first one is curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Maida.
Thank you, Madam President. Curriculum Committee met on February 2nd, and we have several resolutions that you'll see in the agenda this evening for everyone's consideration. We did have several updates. Number one was our discussion of the opening of the Sacred Heart School, which the name will be coming soon. And everyone is very excited about that. Our updates also included and we talked about NCAA rules, which impact our athletes and students. We had newcomer information, data for our district, American Reading Company, and of course, Dr. Hunter is visiting us once again. So we're all excited about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Maida. We're going to move on to the Exceptional Learners Committee. Mrs. Burton.
Thank you, Madam President. Exceptional Learners Committee, we met on February 2nd, and we covered a few areas. One was we had a very informative presentation in respects to our transition programming, and transition planning refers, I'm reading it right from, the PowerPoint, and I think it's important that folk know what this means. It refers to the process of students, parents, guardians, teachers, and other professionals working together to develop a plan that will allow students to successfully move from school to adulthood prior to a student's exit from high school. And we say students, we're really focused on students with disabilities. And one of the programs that is really being run very nicely up at NFA is called Project Search. And this is a transition to work program. It's a unique business-led one-year employment prep program that takes place entirely at the workplace. And the workplace includes quite a few businesses that the district is partnering with. The second update was from our Student Support Services Department, and it's in regards to bringing on a restorative intervention, to using a restorative interventionalist model. And this model is really about aligning social emotional learning, MTSS, multiple tier support services, and restorative practice implementation as a framework that will encompass prevention, social emotional behavioral wellness, and interventions that increase intensity based on the needs of students, staff, and families. It's data-driven as well. The last two items, one, we received updated information on our preschool programs, and also an update on our CPSC and CSC numbers. And that's it for this month's Exceptional Learners Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. Mr. Stritter, and I see your hand.
I'm sorry, Madam President, I raised it by accident.
Oh, okay. Ms. Burton, why don't you lower your hand while you're at it too? And let's move on to Audit and Finance Committee. Mr. Levinstein.
Thank you, Madam President. So the Audit and Finance Committee met at 5 p.m. tonight, and we discussed the 6 resolutions that are on tonight's finance agenda. In addition, we also discussed a payment to the district under the casino host agreement, and that is to cover some of the reduced school taxes from that property. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Levinstein. We're going to move on to the my section of the agenda. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is the superintendent search. So when we met in exec session on February 1st, we looked at 4 submissions from consultants who would search for a new superintendent. We narrowed it down to 1 consultant group that we will be interviewing in the second exec tonight. Following that second executive session, we may be putting forth a resolution to hire a new search consultant. So are there any questions or discussion on this, on the superintendent search? Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it's important for us as a board to understand that this is one of our most important tasks, and that is the hiring of a superintendent and firing of a superintendent. But more importantly, along with the governance of the school district, this, I think we had 3 or 4 that we're really tasked to do, and this is one of the most important. So I look forward to this work. I look forward to working with whomever we choose, but I really want us to understand that this is one of our most important tasks.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Any other questions or discussion? So we're going to move on to item 5.2, which is a resolution to authorize the board to execute an agreement with the deputy superintendent? No. With the,
That's correct, ma'am.
okay, the deputy superintendent. So I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Howard? Mr. Howard, do you have a question? No.
He has no, he does.
No,
Okay.
Madam.
Thank you. I thought you were kind of trying to get my attention. So no questions, no discussion. Roll call, Mr. Clark?
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green.
Yes.
Thank you. And that concludes my item. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Elementary, Mrs. Moriarty.
Thank you, Madam President. Elementary Curriculum Instruction presents item 6.1 this evening for your consideration. This is from Mr. Pinheiro, the teacher on special assignment who leads and runs the Teacher Center, to attend the annual symposium for Teacher Center in Latham, New York.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Moriarty. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary, Mrs. Soto.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening. Our division presents to you agenda items 7.1 through 7.7 for the board members' consideration and consent.
Would any member like to separate out any item? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Soto. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bayer.
Thank you, Madam President. Exceptional Learners has one item tonight. It's the recommendations from the CSE and CPC committees for the board's consideration.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Questions
Yeah.
or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Mr. Goldbeck.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we're presenting items 9.1 through 9.6 as consent items.
Thank you. Would any member like to separate out any items? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida.
Yes.
Mr. Goldbeck?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore. Uh-oh. Mr. McLemore is not at his, oh, there he is. Hi, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. My mouse stopped working, so I couldn't click. I couldn't click on. I have items 10.1 through 10.7 for your consideration on tonight.
Thank you. Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Stritter,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items. I apologize on tonight.
Oh, thank you, Mr. McLemore, and thank you for the little giggle. So that was really kind of a nice break. We're going to move on to the clerk of the board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the approval of the minutes from January 25th and February 1st.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stritter.
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. As I understand, we have no public comments on non-agenda items tonight. Correct, Mr. McCoy?
That would be correct, ma'am.
Thank you. So we're going to go into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: matters leading to the appointment of a particular corporation and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stritter,
Yes. Looks like
Mr.
Mr.
Wall.
his hand up.
I see that. Hang on. We may be doing business when we return. And Mr. Shaw, you have a question?
You've answered it.
Thank you. I just need a little time. Thank you, everyone.
You're all set, Madam President. I started the recording back up.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. So we have item 13.3, which is a resolution to approve the superintendent search consultant. Mr. McCoy, can you read the resolution for us, please?
Be it resolved that the board president is hereby authorized to sign a consultant agreement with the firm Hazard Young and Etna Associates to assist the board in its search for candidates for the position of superintendent of schools. A copy of said agreement as presented to the board at this meeting shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Hold on, ma'am. There's a couple people still in the waiting room. Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stritter,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Ms.
Thank-
Maida.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So
Point of
moved.
order.
Yes,
I
sir.
believe that was just added to the agenda. Now you'll need to move second and vote.
No, sir, I thought it was on the agenda. Mr. McCoy, I need some help.
We already had a placeholder on the agenda. We just added the be it resolved portion to it, but it's been public since it went out on Friday.
Are we okay, Mr. Shaw?
I'd ask that it be moved and seconded in this form and then voted.
Okay. Okay, so can we move it and second it in this form, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, now do I have to do it again? No, we're done. I
You're
think
good.
he said we're
You're
done.
good, ma'am.
Okay,
You're
thank
good.
you. Now, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker, Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Ms. Green.
Yes.
Thank you and have a good